Entertainment Tonight.
The Deng-Gorbachev summit is pushed to the side as demonstrators for democracy take over the streets of Beijing. China's student protest becomes a mass movement. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting from Tiananmen Square in Beijing, China. Good evening. The world's largest public square has now become the scene of the biggest demonstration in the history of Communist China. It is Thursday morning here, the dawn of day 6 of a hunger strike for 3,000 students. But the whole character of the protest changed today as scores of organized groups, including workers, poured in to join the rally. At its height, the crowd was estimated at more than 1 million. The protest, the rebellion, once again overshadowed the summit and forced Chinese officials to cancel Gorbachev's scheduled tour of the ancient Forbidden City, adjacent to Tiananmen Square.
The strike took on the look and feel of an organized, disciplined mass movement. Armies of volunteers supplied everything needed to keep it going indefinitely. Medical care for the hardcore hunger strikers was the first priority. They estimated that 800 had been hospitalized by late in the afternoon when we went back into the square.
The government no longer even pretends to control this area. Back there beyond that sea of people, under the picture of Mao, Tiananmen Gate, the gate to the Forbidden City. That's where the Gorbachevs were supposed to go. As you can see, there was no way the government could get them in there.
Unending lines of workers, elderly people, families with children converged on the world's largest public square.
Among the protesters today, we've seen these developments. First of all, there are many more of them. Secondly, you begin to see government workers from the Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education taking part. Much more anger, much more talk about replacing high government officials, and much more talk about death. Rising concern about the hardcore of hunger strikers.
Some parents came to search through the crowd for their children. We asked this woman, factory worker, if she had a child among the hunger strikers. She said, "These are all our children. These are the people's children. If the government pressures them, we'll risk our lives with them."
One of the important developments of the day, more and more Chinese coming from outside Beijing, from Henan, from Canton, even from Tibet. Tibet's got a lot of problems with the Chinese. But one man from Tibet who arrived today said, "This may not help us, but it's important for China, and I wanted to be here for it."
Mikhail and Raisa Gorbachev went ahead with their trip to the Great Wall of China today, outside Beijing, and had a friendly exchange with some Chinese tourists. But for a Soviet leader to come to Beijing and not be able to visit the legendary Forbidden City was another humiliation for his hosts. He did go back to the Great Hall of the People for the major address of his visit, but he had to go in the back door. There was trouble at the front.
An accommodation had been reached between the student leadership and the government for a while that they would keep the demonstration on the far half of Tiananmen Square, away from the Great Hall of the People. Today, the crowd is so large it surged right up to, literally right up to the steps.
Gorbachev told his audience of Chinese academics that the Soviet Union would never again try to impose its form of communism on another nation. Later at a news conference, Gorbachev was asked about the protest. He said he had received greetings from the Chinese students and messages sent to the Soviet embassy. And he said the students praised the changes taking place inside the Soviet Union and added, "I appreciate their position." He said change is painful, but these are the kinds of processes we need to provide socialism with a second wind.
The mood, the sense, the feel out here today is the protesters, they believe that they're on the brink of forcing change. Change in the Communist Party, change in the government. What kind of change? They're not quite sure.
One of the things the demonstrators have been insisting upon is a freer press, and that's one battle they are winning. Today they were joined by staff members of government-controlled Chinese television, which 2 weeks ago completely ignored a mass protest. Tonight, for the first time, the evening news in China made the demonstration its lead story, and it included scenes of television staff members among the protesters.
Joining me now is Bob Simon, who has been in China for the last several weeks and in the streets for the last few days as this mass movement built. Bob, you've been a lot of places, seen a lot of things as a foreign correspondent. Have you ever seen anything to match this?
No, Dan, in fact, I haven't. On the 4th of May here, during the students' demonstration, I knew I'd never seen so many people before, and that was just the beginning. It just keeps on getting bigger. It wasn't just the square, it was everywhere. An outpouring the likes of which had never been seen or imagined in Beijing before, perhaps not anywhere else. More than 1 million. People came from all over in every way. New arrivals were hailed by veterans who'd already been there half an hour. There was a coffin named Corruption, a street sign named Despair. Those were twin themes of the day. Corruption must end, students must not die. People did not seek anonymity in a mob. They advertised themselves and their participation and proudly proclaimed who they were. Communist workers looked like they'd marched right out of a May Day parade. Radio Beijing. They didn't even report the demonstrations until a few days ago. CITIC, China's biggest trading company. Businessmen sick of payoffs demanding a clean sweep. Christians and travel agents and railway workers chanting, "We love the students." Imagine that. There was a red-bannered contingent from the Ministry of Culture. The Ministry of Culture. There were motorcyclists, medical students, and students of music. Many songs were sung, all of them somehow hoping to harmonize into a swan song for the old order. There were hijackings, friendly takeovers of trucks, while Marxist, Maoist slogans were being thrown back into the faces of the authorities. This one says, "Workers of the world, unite." 2 appeals were being made in the streets of Beijing today, in posters and proclamations, chants and songs. Talk to us and save our children. Dan, of the more than 1 million people who've been on the streets, I don't think a single one was there to get his or her picture taken. These days, with so much of the news we covered being manufactured for us, there's something refreshing about being so close to something that is so genuine and so spontaneous.
Good point. Thank you, Bob. We'll be back in a moment with more breaking news from Shanghai and elsewhere in China as we continue our special series of reports on 2 communist giants amid a revolution in the communist world. Gorbachev, China, and the new face of communism.
Heart's blockade keeps fleas and ticks from getting on your pet. Scientific tests verify that Heart's blockade repellent gives effective flea and tick protection for dogs and cats. With our new test data, you can be assured of both your pet's comfort and total protection or your money back. Used as directed, no other product we've tested is as effective for the control of fleas and ticks. Call this toll-free number for more information. Heart's blockade, clinically proven flea and tick protection that really works.
What a relief. The doctor said no surgery for my hemorrhoids.
That's great.
Yeah, they're not that serious. He said eat right, exercise, and when they flare up, use Preparation H.
Thousands of doctors distribute this hemorrhoidal care guide. It advises a fiber-rich diet, exercise, and for flare-ups, try Preparation H for effective therapy against hemorrhoidal symptoms.
Come on, another mile.
And you thought you needed surgery.
Preparation H, also a new cream.
There's got to be a cure for athlete's foot.
There is. Step up to the mic.
Mike?
Micotin. It cured my athlete's foot. It's got miconazole. There's nothing more powerful than this.
Step up to the cure. Step up to the mic. Micotin.
We've studied your mouth from every angle and created a toothbrush with a very special angle, the Reach toothbrush, with a dental angle designed to clean even back teeth better, to get your teeth 51% cleaner than the other leading brush. Reach for 51% cleaner teeth.
One thing Chinese leaders may be doing is waiting to see if this movement spreads beyond Beijing. And today, it definitely did. People marched and demonstrated in some 25 Chinese cities, in some 21 out of the country's 30 provinces. One of the biggest marches was in Shanghai. CBS News correspondent Bruce Morton is there.
The first columns appeared in late morning, winding their way along Nanjing Road as crowds cheered. The chants were familiar: dialogue, democracy, and support for their fellow students in Beijing. And then they turned the corner, police clearing a path for them now, and marched down the famous Bund along the river where the Western powers ruled a half a century ago. Several thousand marched, no one in the column could say how many, and when they reached the municipal building, several hundred sat down. They joined a group, 124, one of them said, already there. Those were the hunger strikers.
So the hunger strike movement has come to Shanghai. The numbers are smaller here than in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, but the emotions are much the same, and so are the reasons, they say, that brought them to this vigil.
The fasters say they will stay until their demands are met. Police so far have let them. Mikhail Gorbachev is due here tomorrow, the U.S. Navy on Friday. It could be an interesting week. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Shanghai.
Chinese leaders have tried some, but so far they've been unable to come up with any gesture that would stop or even slow down the protests. The student leaders have already brushed off a personal appeal from the leader of the Communist Party, Zhao Ziyang. With me now is our veteran China correspondent, John Shea. And Jack, is there any hope of a peaceful solution here?
There is, Dan, if only because the top leaders of the Communist Party now realize they've got to end this before it gets any bigger.
What about the possibility that eventually a Deng Xiaoping or a Li Peng, the second man down, will have to go as a result of this?
Well, the party is seriously split, and our best Chinese sources tell us that the army has told the government it will not act against the demonstrators unless it's called to put down violent riots. At the top, there's great anger on the part of the hardliners who advised in the beginning to crack down early. They were vigorously opposed by the liberal reformers. And so there is the possibility that this split can turn into, somewhere down the line, a real shakeup at the top.
Any chance that the Communist Party, which does have a grip on the government and the administration of the country, will fall as a result of this?
Well, the whole legitimization of this government is the support of the intellectuals, and Dan, they've lost that.
Jack Shahan, thank you very much. I'll be back with the other news of the day in a moment.
Right now, a trip to your favorite store could mean a trip to Florida, or just about anywhere in the USA. It's the Holiday Inn Great Vacation Giveaway. Just look for these specially marked Procter & Gamble packages for a chance to win one of 1,000 Holiday Inn vacation packages. And everyone instantly receives the Holiday Inn bonus offer. Buy your first weekend night and get a bonus second night. So don't just sit there. Shop your way to a great vacation.
Going to Providence St. Mel in the heart of Chicago is something special because almost every graduate goes on to college. And thanks to the people at Dow, we get scholarships, money for this old building, even books and tuition so my teacher could go after his PhD. Says he'd love to pay Dow back with a scientist.
Yes, you can make a difference in what tomorrow brings.
Maybe this scientist.
Dow lets you do great things.
Oh boy, fruit and fiber.
No, it's new fruit and fiber.
Beg your pardon?
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, they added 25% more dates, raisins, and walnuts to the dates, raisins, and walnuts. So now it's the great tasting fruit and fiber.
Just because they added more dates, raisins, and walnuts doesn't change the name. It's still fruit and fiber.
No. Matter of fact, it's so delicious, they should call it fruit and fruit and fruit and fruit and fiber.
New Post Fruit and Fiber cereal, now with 25% more dates, raisins, and walnuts.
Even as Gorbachev here in Beijing announced unilateral troop and warship cuts in the Soviet Far East, Soviet forces elsewhere were making yet another well-advertised departure. This time, East Germany, the first of 10,000 soldiers and 4,000 tanks to leave under cuts announced last year, headed for home. In Washington, the Organization of American States opened its first special foreign ministers meeting in 7 years to debate the Panama situation. The U.S. wants a resolution calling for Manuel Noriega to step down. In Panama, Noriega's strong-arm tactics took the steam out of today's planned general strike. Juan Vasquez is there.
The challenge to Noriega fizzled out early today. Faced with the threat of losing their businesses if they closed, practically every store opened on time. The government says the strike is illegal, so we have to open, he said. Others complained that police were cruising down the street to see who joined the strike, and that was enough to scare those who might have. Even the anti-Noriega Chamber of Commerce told its members to decide for themselves whether to join the strike. After last week's violence, few want to confront Noriega's troops.
The Panamanian people, they're not afraid, they're not cowards, but they're good people. They don't understand this kind of game.
Noriega, who hadn't been seen in public for 2 weeks, made his first comment since the election. In an interview with French television today, he denied that last week's violence was officially inspired.
It was not the governmental police forces that committed the violence. It was clashes between the opposition parties. That sort of thing takes place anywhere in the world.
By waiting a week since their last action, the opposition seems to have lost momentum. Noriega's waiting game has given him time to get a second wind. Time for the opposition to make mistakes. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Panama City.
A West German court today sentenced Lebanese terrorist Mohammed Ali Hamadi to life in prison for the 1985 hijacking of TWA Flight 847. It was the maximum penalty under West German law. During the 17-day ordeal, U.S. Navy diver Robert Steedham was beaten and murdered, shot to death. Hamadi has denied killing Steedham. He blames it on an accomplice who remains at large. A U.S. government report today touched off worldwide market rallies with word that record American exports for March narrowed the nation's trade deficit. CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady has details.
In money pits around the world today, they were scrambling to buy the American dollar, sending its value up by 3 yen against the Japanese currency, a tremendous one-day rise.
It's definitely going up. It's going up in a big way.
The buying was set off by an improvement in the nation's trade deficit, which narrowed to $8.8 billion in March. And that helped pick up prices on Wall Street as well. The Dow Jones average rising nearly 9 points in heavy trading.
One problem in all this, the higher the dollar goes, the more expensive it becomes for foreigners to buy American goods. So that this big increase in the dollar could hurt the very trade figures that set off today's big rally. Ray Brady, CBS News, New York.
An official at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport today called it the worst thunderstorm I've ever seen, and that was just part of the killer storm system battering Texas. Scott Pelley reports.
A third day of violent storms spun tornadoes and turned roadways into riverbeds in central and east Texas. In the Dallas area, at least 2 people drowned. One, a woman in her car, was just beyond the reach of rescuers.
The car slipped again. She went over the side and the car submerged. We lost her.
High water forced the closing of many schools and the evacuation of hundreds of residents living in low-lying areas. In the central Texas town of Jarrell, one woman was killed when a tornado swept through, splintering houses and rolling a dozen trucks off the highway. With rivers and lakes passing flood stage, the area will be hit with more rain tonight. Scott Pelley, CBS News, Dallas.
Ignoring President Bush's veto threat, the U.S. Senate tonight gave final approval to raising the national minimum wage from $3.35 an hour to $4.55 an hour, what would be the first minimum wage increase in 8 years. Mr. Bush has vowed to veto any increase above $4.25. U.S. Transportation Secretary Samuel Skinner today raised fuel economy requirements for 1990 model cars to 27.5 miles per gallon. That's up from 26.5 this year. Skinner cited the need to reduce U.S. dependence on oil imports. Environmental groups had been pushing for this as a way to reduce pollution. Now, in a moment, I'll be back from over there in the Forbidden City, where Gorbachev couldn't go today, with the story of the one big problem that underlies everything else here in China, a population of more than 1 billion, and still counting.
When you've got hemorrhoids, walking is hard. Sitting, worse. Anusol has an anesthetic for the pain and itch of hemorrhoids. Prep H doesn't. Anusol has an anesthetic to take the hurt out of hemorrhoids.
It was Dean Witter's personal philosophy of success.
We have a sacred trust to protect our customers.
But its impact was felt on California Street,
To maintain conservative policies.
on Lincoln Street, and Acorn Street.
To put the interest of our clients first.
Dean Witter put principles before profit, people before portfolios. There are many ways to measure success on Wall Street.
We measure success one investor at a time.
Dean Witter, a member of the Sears Financial Network.
It's Color Tile's Savings Celebration. Our 700th store is open. And to celebrate, every Color Tile has 700 beautiful looks on sale. Now, every ceramic tile is up to 54% off. Every vinyl tile up to 30% off. Every Armstrong sheet vinyl up to 33% off. And every in-stock wall covering is half price. Plus, save on new color carpet. Every square yard of DuPont Stainmaster is up to 41% off. Hurry, sale ends Sunday at Color Tile.
What's the best kind of fruit? The kind that's fresh, moist, and plump. That's why Sunsweet are my favorite kind of pitted prunes. Moist, plump, and fresh. Sunsweet, because the best prunes are fresh prunes.
In the 500 years that the emperors ruled China from this forbidden city, this doorway and this narrow corridor led to the bedrooms of the imperial concubines. At that time, China's rulers believed that her strength, her power, was in her numbers. How times change. Today's communist rulers know that there's no way to meet the rising expectations of the billion Chinese outside these walls until and unless the population time bomb is somehow diffused. Susan Spencer reports on the struggle to limit the number of the new faces of China.
Once a month, Chen Yufeng takes the yellow box around her tiny village in Sichuan province, handing out contraceptives to her neighbors. Sometimes she also has to explain what to do with them. But neither she nor any of the other volunteers at the local clinic questions the need for China to control its population.
They know it, and it affects their lives directly. Because it is just right there, you know, in the kind of housing they have, in the kind of food they have, and so on. What is difficult for them to accept is the one child.
If there were no family planning policy, she says, I would very much like to have 2 children. But it is only China's one-child policy that gives this country any hope of meeting its goal of keeping the population down to 1.5 billion by the middle of the next century. Right now, 25 Chinese are added to the total every single minute. In urban areas, though, most couples do have only one baby, prodded by constant messages from the government and nosy neighborhood committees. Central authorities set community quotas, so many babies per year. Local leaders then decide who gets to have them and who doesn't.
So she knows from these records what every woman in the neighborhood is using for contraceptives?
Given the social pressure and the housing shortage, one-child urban families like Yang Zongyu's dutifully go along.
What would happen if your wife got pregnant accidentally?
We would go and ask for induced abortion.
Mm-hmm. Even if a woman did hesitate, most who are pregnant without permission are persuaded to have an abortion early on. Persuaded by argument, or if necessary, by direct threats, loss of a job or an apartment. But the experts say reports of actual forced abortions are rare today.
So when they ask me, is the China family planning program coercive? And I say, well, is the whole of Chinese life coercive? Because this is the way that decisions are made.
In the countryside, the decisions are made the same way, but ask the question, how many children do you have? And you're likely to hear,
2. 2? Do many people around here have 2 children?
2, even 3 children. The rural areas grant many exceptions to the one-child rule. There are often harsh fines for having more than one, but wealthy farmers simply pay them. Another pair of hands in the field is worth it. For many peasants, it's also worth it to have a boy. In some areas, having a girl is an accepted reason for a second try.
They said, well, all right, we have a one-child policy, but when we say one child, we mean 1.7.
In fact, 9 million babies were born outside the one-child plan last year. Worried officials have warned of food and housing shortages if the one-child policy isn't more strictly enforced.
What do you think will happen to China if everybody doesn't go along with this?
Oh, terrible, I think. More poverty and maybe disaster.
Total compliance with a one-child policy would have meant a China with no brothers and sisters, no nieces and nephews, where parents doted on spoiled only children. Today, China struggles to even come close to that goal, though its very future may depend on it. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Chengdu, China.
From China, that's tonight's CBS Evening News. We'll be here again tomorrow covering the Gorbachev's visit to the cradle of Chinese communism in Shanghai and the still building student turmoil here in Beijing as we examine two rapidly changing countries and the changing face of communism. See you tomorrow. Good night.
This couldn't wait until tomorrow? Look at this.
The world runs on fax.
How'd they messenger it so fast? They didn't.
And one network was made to run it.
This is the original. Look at it.
MCI Fax, the world's dedicated fax network, with quality and power you can't get from ordinary phone lines. That's why leading fax manufacturers recommend it.
What kind of a machine do they? No. What kind of network?
With MCI Fax, it's there already.
I may look like older engines, but I'm really a complex 80s kind of guy. I've got onboard computers, programmed fuel injection, all kinds of high-tech systems. And frankly, old Bob, your mechanic down the street, just doesn't understand me. That's why I need Precision Tune. They've got what it takes to diagnose my problems, tap my inner feelings, fix me up, and guarantee it. Now if they can help me get over my fear of the dark.
Precision Tune. We do more than fix your car. We guarantee it.
April in Paris.
He said he'd give me Paris wrapped up in ribbons. But he was young and poor. So we settled for a small cafe and coffee. Coffee so rich, I thought I'd never taste its like again.
Discover the pleasure of a rich French roast, new from Maxwell House. Rich French roast coffee. We can't give you France, but we'll give you the flavor.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, live from Beijing, the latest on the massive protests in China.
Also, Dusty Springfield, a name and voice from the 60s on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Clark. We're going to have these stories and a lot more coming up next right here on Eyewitness News at 6. Bobby Wilkes, remember he once said he didn't do it? Well, the former funeral director has changed his mind and says he is guilty. Budget cuts will hit every metro department, but it'll hit some more than others, and maybe not for the reason you might think of. A metro school gets a good national attention, and Kentucky's going to the pros, hopefully to find a basketball coach. Eyewitness News is coming up next. Join us.